Hi, everyone. I'm Steve Altition, Director of Client Partnerships here at Pacific Cascade Legal. And today we have ICF certified coach Melissa Harris to talk about what to do when you're grappling with the loss of self through a destabilizing life event. Hey, Melissa, how you doing today?
Hi, Steve. I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm well. It is not 100 degrees, and that makes me.
I know.
So before we start that though, I really would like you to just talk a little bit about yourself, kind of how you got into this particular type of stuff that you're coaching and kind of what led you there.
Thanks. I would love to do that. I'd love to share a little bit about my story, which was started about, I would say, about seven years ago. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing today was because of a destabilizing life event that happened to me. So in service of what we're talking about today, I'll just share a little bit about that. It's about 7 years ago. I lost my parents, and they both passed away within the same about 10 months apart. So it was probably my real first loss, like real loss. I had some grandparents who had passed, but these were my two closest people at the time to me. I was a single person at the time, no children, so they really were my world. And so when that happened, it really leveled me. It leveled me, and it shocked me, and it threw me into a. I mean, I'm a seeker by nature, but it really threw me into a seeking phase of my life where I went out and probably in an effort to soothe my grieving and to soothe my hurt, I really went out in search of answers. And in search of those answers, it had me stop in my tracks for a minute. Some sort of inner wisdom had me say, just stop everything for a minute, take a breath. And what I mean by that is I had a very fruitful career going, a very, very, very busy career that was quite demanding. And it never in my previous thought process would I ever think stop. But this moment said stop. And I did. I took a break from my career, and I said I was going to take a couple months. And that couple months turned into about 6 months where I was working with several different types of support structures. Whether that was somatic work that I brought in with a practitioner that I had my own therapist that I work with, I had spiritual leaders that I sought out, I had a coach that I sought out. I really I'm one of those seeker people that I was like, I need people, I need help. And I also need to learn how to listen to what it is I need. And through doing that, taking that minute, I I re I was reintroduced to like that higher self, that deeper part of myself, that some people call it your soul, some people call it, your the part of you that co-creates with something that's bigger than yourself. If that's spirit or what that is to you, whatever that means to you. And and it made me look around to every aspect of my life, and that was work and relationship and friendships and my health. And it really was like, you need to make some changes, radical changes, and things don't feel fully aligned for what I was doing and what I had done up until those many decades of my life. All of a sudden things felt off. And that was just destabilizing in and of itself, because I was just like, wait a minute, how was I not, did I make all the wrong choices? And it wasn't so much that I was making all the wrong choices. I just think that I was recognizing where I had been conditioned, where I had been influenced, where I had been pushed, for maybe different from where I grew up, like the location that I grew up in, and what that environment, how that imposed on me, what my family, my parents, my siblings, how they influenced me, college, friends. I mean, you name it, you could keep going. All of the things. I was looking around and really taking stock at what were my choices, what were my influences, what were really coming from me and what were coming from outside sources. And I spent a lot of time with it. And I, you know, walked long walks with it. And I journaled long journal entries about it. And I, took up different practices that I had never done before just to get connected to myself. And it was so that's essentially that's what it was. It was that big moment that just had me stop and
Yeah.
and recognize that. I think it really recognized that. It made me recognize that I had empathy, but I didn't have even the deepest amount of empathy or compassion that I really had in there. Like, it cracked something open inside that, like, and maybe some people, this is what it's called, where your heart opens, or where your heart chakra, or you just all of a sudden you listen to something that's no longer just you're driven from up here, but you're starting to listen to down here more in this heart space, to where I was I wanted to be in service, so that's where I was looking at the work piece, because I was like, although I think all of the work that we do is in service of something. I mean, a law firm, legal, you're helping to serve people with major destabilizing events in their lives. And so, the person at the grocery store is serving you to feed yourself. I mean, we all are doing things in service, but I wanted to do something very specific. I think that heart opening, or that awakening that happened 7 years ago, awakened something that I needed to do something in a different type of service. And so that's where I sought out getting various certifications, getting various support studies. I just went into a full education. Coaching was one of the pieces. I wanted to be certified, so I had the skill set to help people. But then I also really wanted to help, like, this grief piece, because it was my story, was really where I was seeing the need. I was looking around and I'm like, people are struggling, with various forms of grief, depending on what's happening to them in their life. And so that was kind of the full circle story that led to, all right, I want to get some training, and I want to help people in this way. And it opened my eyes and my heart to the truth of how I wanted to flow from that moment forward.
I like it. Okay. And that makes you perfect today to talk to. We are a family law firm, and we come in contact with people who have grief, have destabilizing events, and there's a lot more. It's not more than just someone dying, and something happens, and you can tell when they come in. Can you talk about that a little? Just sort of what happens to people kind of within themselves when they experience one of these destabilizing events?
A lot of things start to happen. First, I think number one, there's shock. Shock is like the biggest thing that I think people experience, and that kind of gets them in a place of, where they can't move, like a stuckness. The shock creates this stuck moment of, what just happened? Is this real? Is this, so there's like a little bit of like denial, and really you're in this like processing phase of like, am I accepting what has happened? Is this my new life now? Is this a dream? It all feels very surreal depending on what happened to people. And so I think that's kind of in the initial what happens. And it gets you, I think one of the biggest things too is it can get you really confused. And that confusion state, you don't feel like you can go backwards, you can't go forwards. You're just and it can be really difficult for the people in your life. I mean, not to, I mean, it's primarily super difficult for yourself, but it's also really hard for people around you who want to help, and they want you to tell them how to help, and you're completely stuck. So I think that's what kind of people initially are in that at that space. And I think if they are willing to go get support, go talk to somebody, either one-on-one, or talk to get themselves into a group setting that's applicable to whatever life events going on for them, that allows the emotions to start to process. It starts, because you don't know what to do. You don't know what to say. Sometimes you don't even know what you're supposed to feel. And so when you get into those spaces where someone guiding that out of you, and again, if it's one-on-one or group, it just go with your gut, go with your preference, and they're guiding that out of you. You start to feel and see what it is you're feeling, and the more you get that out, number one, it's way more healthy for you than to keep it inside, but it also starts that process of moving forward. It's like you will find that if you don't like initiate that process or let someone help you with that process, you might stay in this space for much longer. And of course, you'll notice that it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's not meant to feel good. It's actually meant to wake us up. It's meant to hurt and be painful, and to give us an experience of learning, of radical learning.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you talked about that. And one of the things that, when I was reading some of your stuff, was you have to hit that. You could call it a wall. I think you call it a Mack truck, but you kind of have to reach that. And it's actually part of regaining your footing, and could kind of talk about that. Once that kind of thing happens, you go, I got to do something. How do you start? How do you then move forward back onto your
Yeah.
path, which I think you said.
Yeah, that's that. I mean, the goal is trying to realign. Like we have a set path that our life, you know, is mapped out for us, but we get off of that path, and it's okay. It's like, don't, there shouldn't be any judgment about that. It happens to all of us, and it's those moments and those life events that happen that are put there to sort of nudge us back, or wake us up, or have this moment of aliveness that is, maybe it's your first time feeling that aliveness. And sometimes aliveness, it's not always like the high highs. Feeling fully alive as a human, it's like, yes, we have all these like joys and excitements and jubilee and all these positive emotions that happen, but to feel alive is also to have, the light and the dark. So the dark that happens as
Yeah.
well is just as important for our learning as the light, because I think it's for one, how do you appreciate all the good without having the
Yeah.
extreme polar opposite? We have to have that polarity. And I think that was
Absolutely.
something I didn't even, it wasn't until these things happened to me as well that I didn't understand these, how to walk this path, having all of these days of amazing things that happen, and these days of incredibly devastating things that happen, and feeling so blessed, but then also like, really today, you have such extreme experiences that are happening, but they're there. And so what you're meant to do is, I mean, it's very difficult in this day and age, and especially in our country, but you're meant to just, if you can slow down for just a minute, even in one day, just slow down in that moment of, if you're having a really, really hard time, something's happening because of something that's happened to you, sit for a
Yeah.
minute, think about it, breathe. What is this? What's going on? What's happening to me?
Yeah.
There's, the lessons are in these moments.
That's what you said. it was something like, these challenges are opportunities, and, pain, grief, they're teaching you something.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just thought that was a tremendous kind
It's
of way to
well,
look at it.
I mean, maybe because when we're talking about grief, it usually centers around, bigger life emotions and bigger life events. But imagine something even more simple, like just a daily trigger, something that is just, I, I don't know, the news, a family member, a friend group, work. I mean, there's so many areas of our lives that can create something that you can be riding high, and all of a sudden somebody in your world says something, or you hear something, and you're just triggered, and you're completely polar opposite of what you just felt. You're feeling anger or judgment or something really, extreme. And I think that's an opportunity for a moment to just stop and be like, what just happened? What just happened in that moment that I went from complete joy and maybe bliss, or just a really satisfactory day, to like completely upset. When you have to take stock of like what that was, what's going on for you, why are you so upset about that? Is there something that it's reflecting about yourself? Is there something going on inside that is, that made you so angry? Are you completely frustrated with the topic that was being talked about? Are you not feeling heard and you're getting frustrated? Are you feeling like you don't have a voice? I mean, there's all sorts of things, but the biggest message here is to take the moment for that self-reflection, because the deeper self-awareness about why we get triggered or why we have these emotions helps us to then, in the long run, as they happen, because they're never going, I mean, these things don't ever stop in life. They continue to happen to us, but we can manage them much better once we have this awareness. We
Yeah.
can, they can come, and you get much quicker at being like, oh, okay, that's not mine. That's not mine. That's just a reaction, or whatever the case may be. Yeah.
The old saying, curiosity killed the cat, is wrong.
Curiosity killed
It's
the cat.
wrong. Curiosity is what teaches you and
Yeah.
helps you. I like the fact that you talk about this whole thing as experience and embrace the good and the bad,
Yeah.
and because they're all there, and learn more about them, and to deal with them.
Yeah. I remember, it's like the story I told in the beginning. I can very distinctly remember back right after that happened, and the shock that I personally was in. And I remember, I think it was a workmate who said to me, very quickly after it happened, and it was like, and I was just so in a frenzy and in a shock, and couldn't think straight half the time. Like each day I was foggy. And he's like, Melissa, it's like, I'm so sorry for what you're going through. It's like, it's crazy. It's like something, we're all going to go through it. We're all going to lose our parents. Like and it was like that moment, I was so foggy that I was like, oh my gosh, we are. I mean, it was the simplest thing, but I was like, I was so in my own pain and emotion and grief and shock that I was just like, this is something, this is my time. This is my turn. This happens to all of us. And and now it's about, how am I going to walk through this, get through it. I wasn't in a frame of mind yet to be like, what am I going to learn from this? I was still very much in I just need to get through this. But it was just, hearing that was a reminder of like, this is happening to all of us all the time. Life events that are highs and lows are happening to humans. That's what it is to be human, is they're happening, all through our lives. They're happening all around you. That reminder we always hear, it's like, you never know what someone's going through. So try to be kind,
Yeah.
because,
Yeah.
it's so simple, but it's so, so true.
It's you were talking earlier about being stuck in the can't go backward, can't go forward, and we see that a lot. because
Yeah.
that's especially in things like a divorce. It's like you fear what was behind you and you fear what was in front of you, and you get, like you said, stuck. So if I come into you and I say this, I'm kind of in this position. I mean, I want to do that. I want to be more curious, but how do I start? I mean, are there some like things I can do? I know you talked about journaling. There's some like just concrete things that I can do to get out of the muck of I'm not going to do anything and kind of do
Yeah.
something.
Yes, there are. And I think, one of my favorite ways that I think is really effective and really simple is when you're when you're feeling like that, if you're just wherever you are, if you can just get up and go move. And I mean, the simplest thing is like, if you can walk outside and take a walk around the block, like, and I'm trying to make it real simple for those people who are like in the middle of a city or in the middle of a neighborhood or at work and they're in their building. If you can just get up and walk outside and be in silence and walk around the block. And if you can have access to nature, even better. Like if you can go somewhere and take a hike or a walk in nature, even better. Because what that does is it literally calms the nervous system if you're breathing, and it can get you a moment of like introspection where you can just sort of like you have to stabilize yourself for a minute. And then you can almost listen to yourself. It's like the messages from your heart can come through a little louder. And that's also the whole purpose of meditation. But I understand everybody's meditation journey is very singular and very unique, and not everyone has a relationship or a practice with meditation. So and I even think sometimes meditation, I think it intimidates people, and I think it's just from a sheer like, I just don't know how to do it, or I can't do that, or and I've found that I mean, I was definitely that person in the beginning too. I was like, I can't, like the meditation thing. It's just like, all I do is loop, 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 loop. I'm just looping. I can't do it. But what I found is that for me, the walking meditation, a moving meditation has really started that practice for me. And it has for so many of my clients. And that's the simplest way, because you also, by moving, you're completely changing the energy of the place you're at. Like if I'm sitting at my desk and I'm stuck and aggravated or wherever I am, if I get up and move and get out of the space and outside with the fresh air and the oxygen going into my brain, that's physically, you change. Physiologically, there's a change that's happening on a cellular level. And then it can just allow you to listen. And in that place, then you can maybe just like, that's where that's where you bring in the curiosity. What's happening for me? What's going on here? Why am I so stuck? Why am I so, and just, and then the moving, because it's like such a rhythmic move. That's why I think walking better than running, because it's just like, it's gentle. And I'm telling you, it sounds so simple, but it really helps. And that would be my number one.
Yeah, I love that. When my feeling about moving is that it also, like you said, you're sitting there, you're getting angry, you're getting frustrated, you get to move, and your sensory, you're seeing something new every second, especially like walking more than running. And you see
Yeah,
things and you notice, oh, hold it, there's a cat. And it like you said, it kind of helps break
exactly.
you into thinking of other things.
Yeah, exactly. You really get out of your self-sabotage. You get out of yourself, you just get out of your selfness. Do you know what I mean? You're just self-centeredness. It allows you to see the like it's what's happening is just an emotion. That's all it is. It's gonna pass. And I think, and then what happens when you start moving is it gets that like energy moving again. So the emotion does pass through quicker. So you're not sitting in it, because there really is something about like just you can sit and stew. That whole
Yeah.
saying is, and moving gets it going. And then, and that's why also the processing grief with others, whether again group or one-on-one work, is helpful because it helps that process, because a lot of times we don't innately know how to do that for ourselves. So it's really supportive.
I like where you kind of hit the, you know, see how you feel after you do these things. Because,
Yeah.
it's not just walking around, walking around, walking around, then coming back and sitting. It's sort of like, okay, I feel different, and I'm curious, why do I feel different? Kind of stuff. It's the
Yeah.
curiosity part I really like.
The
That's good.
curiosity part is key. And that's why people are always saying, like, do you journal? Do you journal? I think sometimes people wonder why, like, why is everybody always telling me to journal? Or why are people talking about journaling so much? And it's really just a simple thing. It's like when you go out and have that walk and you have that curiosity, it's sometimes really helpful just to jot down, like, did anything come to you? Like, why are you feeling that way? Like, why did you get so triggered? Or why? Because when you just jot down a couple sentences, it's like over time, when you look back, you start to learn something. It's like the pages just start to reveal something that you weren't. So it's, sometimes journaling just feels good to just get it out, like you would just a deep breath, like, or like sometimes when I'm really frustrated, I don't just do a deep breath, I do a because it just gets the energy out, and the vibration feels, it just moves energy. But I think that sometimes for some people, that's what writing is. But if writing isn't your thing, jotting it down is just so that you can learn about yourself.
Yeah.
It's just about a learning, it's simple.
I love the fact that you're going to a coach or you're going to a therapist, but they're just helping you teach yourself.
Oh yeah. I mean, all of that is, you're the one doing the work. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're the one that you're the one that saves yourself. Any of those people, any of those support, spiritual leader, anybody in that realm, they're just guides. They're just helping you. You're the one saving yourself always, but sometimes you just don't really know what to do and what those steps are and how to do it, and putting one foot in front of the other. And that's where those people are so key to come into your life and help.
I like that. I like that. Well, I'm almost blown through this, of course.
I
This
know, of
goes
course.
so fast. But I just want to talk about one more thing. And you use the term nothing is linear. And I really like that because we have a lot of people, again, that we deal
Mhm.
with who only see one thing happening. This is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and that's going to happen, and then that's going to happen. But it doesn't have to be the case.
Right. The thing about nothing is linear is, I think when it comes to going through a grieving process or a processing process of, or excuse me, processing of a grieving process that you're going through, is there are different steps. There is acceptance, there is processing, there's adjusting to the world without the people in it anymore, or without the substance in it anymore, or something, because sometimes we lose people in our lives, and sometimes we lose things that make us feel lost to ourselves. And, and there's also ways to, as you're processing and you're accepting and you're adjusting to the world, none of those things are happening. Like, they don't always have to happen in an order. And you don't always have to have like the grief container of emotions, which are like anger, shock, denial, confusion. They don't all happen like, first you're going to feel this, then you're going to feel this. They're just happening. And I think it's acceptance of the fact that this isn't a linear process. This is just a process, and it's going to be unique to you. And and you can't always go to the next person and be like, how was it for you? Because, and it's beautiful to share, because sometimes that creates comfort and support, but it should be non-judgmental. And you should just know that, like, whatever your process is your process. And it's a beautiful thing, and just allow it. Because if you think like, I should be here now, why am I not feeling better by now? I should be. It's
Yep.
that has to be removed from the conversation, because it's,
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
you're unique.
Yep. Yep. I think that's really, really, really important for people to understand. Well, I
It's
didn't do
really,
this, so something's wrong.
no, it's
Uh,
really important. Yeah.
yeah. So we are running out of time, but I do want to ask you, if someone wants to get a hold of you, and talk to you or reach out to you, how can they do that?
You can reach me. My website is wishbonewellness.com. And wishbone is spelled a little bit uniquely. It's spelled WYSHBONE, wellness.com. And then it's the same thing on Facebook and Instagram. It's just wishbone_wellness on both of those. And then I'm also on LinkedIn as Melissa Harris. And I'm very reachable in all the ways. And I do free events in Los Angeles if you're in the area, in their hiking events, their community where we get into movement and nature and emotion and just they're great free, to help you start processing if you're really curious about getting that process going for yourself. I do those once a month, and I do workshops for organizations about grief all the time. So
Love
those
it.
are my key ways of support. Yeah.
Oh,
Thanks,
good.
Steve.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Melissa, for being here. To talk about this, grief, loss of self, just all of that kind of stuff is just really tough to understand. And you make it, well, understandable. So thank you
Oh,
very
good.
much
I'm
for
so
being here.
glad. Yeah, thank you. That's my hope, is just to
Oh,
support people in these hard times.
I love that. I love that. And everyone else who's joining us today, thank you. If anyone has any further questions, of course, you can reach out to Melissa, or you can post it here and we can get you connected with Melissa. And until next time, stay safe, stay happy, and be well.